Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Marko. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Cosmos. How are you?
Pretty well, doing well. How about yourself? Doing good?
Yeah. I just came back from basketball practice, so perfect timing to have a Twitter space now.
Yeah, nice. It's awesome. I hope you had a good time.
I really enjoy it, and then if I come back, I feel energized.
Yeah, we'll let the room fill up a little bit. I know this isn't our normal scheduled time, so maybe people don't realize it's right now, but we'll get it going here shortly.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hello, Mike.
Hey.
Yeah, I was just getting caught up because it was Labor Day weekend for us here in the States. So kind of for the first time in a while, kind of chilled out over the weekend. Usually I get a lot of work done. Mostly my work on the weekends is research. I don't really do much at all, to be honest with you. I hosted a space I do a weekly Saturday morning space, but other than that, I kind of just vibed out for the weekend. So I'm just getting caught up all day on random Twitter and random topics, and looks like there's been a lot of moving parts in this space, like as of always, so it's nice to get caught up here. Yeah, so everyone that's here is welcome to the space. We'll get started here in a few minutes. If you can, just like and retweet. It does help get out there, even if people aren't in here right now. Maybe they get in, more people listen to the recording. So, really would appreciate it. So, hope all is well with everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We'll get started here real shortly. Marko, did you mint that bad kid?
Yeah.
Nice. What's crazy is I missed the mint. It was actually my birthday. My birthday is March 11th. That's when the mint was.
Ooh.
And yeah, I missed it. And then I was working permissionless in Florida. It was like May of 21. And quite a few people at the time I was helping out with Osmosis, and quite a few people were like, hey, you need to get some bad kids, and I'm like, all right. And then I grabbed a few. I wish I'd have grabbed more, but yeah, it's good times with the bad kids.
It's kind of funny how in Cosmos it was like the bad animals recently, and it's just like how Cosmos, there's like an NFT that launches that's hand drawn, and Cosmos people go crazy for it.
I know. Well, these ones do stand out because I'm kind of like somewhat of an NFT junkie, and I have quite a few, and like a lot of them are just kind of similar, but then this one just stands out. So anytime someone has a PFP, if it's a bad kid, I could be scrounging the internet or Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and I know instantly they, probably a cosmonaut. At least if not, then they got it on Stargaze. So
Exactly. That's true.
it's always nice. Yeah, because I know they're the first ones to hand draw. Like there may be more out there now, like on different chains or whatever, but I don't recall anyone ever having a hand drawn one before Bad Kids. It's like always like the pixels and all the it's a lot of it's just the same.
Yeah, it's kind of rinse and repeat.
Exactly. Well, I guess we'll get started. So again, thank you everyone that tuned in. This is our weekly Into the Cypher space. We typically do this an hour before this, but all is well. We're going to do it today at this time. So how's everyone? We have Mike, Frederick, Mike T, and then Marko from Binary Builders. How's everyone doing today?
Doing pretty good. And yourself?
Doing well. And then Frederick, how you doing, man?
Hello, everyone. Doing fine. Happy to be here again. It's always great to join the space and get some new inputs from experts joining us, and also community people coming up asking questions. It's always nice.
Just give me 1 second here. I'm going to pin the Cypher state up here. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm a little thrown off today because usually I'm the co-host, and we have like cool music, and I apologize, I don't have any cool music for us to listen to. But I don't know if any of you guys like listen to any of the ongoing news, but today it looked like Gala Games, which is like real big. If anyone doesn't know, like really, really big institution, but real big player in this space. It looks like the CEO is basically both CEOs and co-founders are suing one another. So that's always interesting. I don't know. It's kind of sad when you see things like that, but looks like the CEO Eric, his name's Schermeyer, is being sued by the co-founder Wright Thurston. So I don't know. Did any of you guys see any of that at all?
I saw it in the notes, but maybe something to mention here is that Gala Games is not at all related to Galactica Network, even though they sound kind of similar. And we in the beginning even thought about naming our guest token Gala, but that's a separate company.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. And also, kind of glad you guys didn't do that, because this is kind of would be always, I guess, that like tarnished or whatnot. And this will probably never, in my opinion, won't go away. It'll always have some sort of a stink, because anytime founders of any business kind of, they found the project or company and then they're suing one another, it's just never a good look. So it's kind of sad that happens. Like, to be honest with you, I have no exposure to it, never checked it out. I just know that like there's been a previous SEC lawsuit for fraudulent activities, and I guess there's like a huge theft of a bunch of their tokens and theft and sell of node licenses. It's kind of an ugly mess. And again, what's sad about this space in general is it's never the technology, right? Like the blemishes in this space are never, for the most part, I can't say always, but usually not technology based. It's always this human corruption, which, kind of why crypto was invented in the first place, was to try to mitigate human error and wrongdoings or whatnot. So I don't know. I just didn't want to touch too much on it. Just kind of sad, because I know they're like a real big player in the space, and a lot of people outside of Cosmos probably has exposure, have heard of it. I know not too many people in Cosmos I ever heard personally talk about it, that in particular. And then the other topic, which is more precedent, is Greyscale won their appeal against the SEC for the sending Bitcoin, or basically the Bitcoin ETF. So I think that's what it was. Did you guys hear anything about that at all? Any of you guys?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, and I think it's gonna really bleed into what's going to come. I think it was also like there's a theory that one of the biggest wallets now on Bitcoin is from like Robinhood, and so you can definitely see some bigger players accumulating. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the new year. I think for the rest of the year, it's going to be quite calm.
Well, that'll be nice, because this has been so like, I try not to get really involved. I've been investing in technology for like, I don't know, a couple decades now, and I understand how newer technologies, they just kind of spike and drop and spike and drop. So I try to take out the human emotion, but it would be nice for me, as like in a selfish standpoint, doing these spaces and creating content and just talking to a lot of the community, especially in Cosmos. It's been kind of dry lately, it's kind of sad. It's just human nature. When the going gets tough, a lot of people tune out, and a lot of I could deal with. The weather's real nice, and we're still having real nice weather worldwide, and people are outside, and rightfully so. But then it's just like the enthusiasm hasn't really necessarily been there lately, and a lot of it, it's always pinned on price points, and having Bitcoin have more of a clearer path for big money. And one of the problems that people don't realize in this space as a whole is like the people that just look at prices, like, when's price going to go up? Well,
I mean, honestly, most of the boomers control all the wealth on this world, and they're kind of conservative. And honestly, they don't understand tech for the most part in general, let alone Web3. But, it's really bullish in general when Larry Fink and BlackRock, which has like over $10 trillion of assets under management, wants exposure to Bitcoin. I think they have like a few of the biggest miner operations, if I can recall correctly. So, Larry Fink always ends up getting what he wants. I mean, they have more wealth under management than majority of I think every country except for two nations in the world. So they're going to get that, and which will be good because it'll make it easier for people that, they just want to get a few percent of their overall portfolio, which that doesn't sound like a lot, right, saying that, but it truly is because, again, they have trillions of dollars under management. So that'll kind of, in my opinion, be the trickle down effect, the positivity in this space, and more money will eventually kind of wheedle into our space in general. So that's always a good thing. And then, it's up to all the chains and applications to add value and keep building and making it easier for people that are less tech enthusiasts like all of us are to kind of use these sort of technologies. And it has gotten, it is improving. I know I've only been technically in crypto since the virus. So since it's basically March of 21 or whatever it was. But yeah, it's got a lot better. I know when I first got into Cosmos, there's just a huge learning curve, like how to do things and needing to know why things work, so to speak, as opposed to just doing things. And people aren't necessarily going to care about needing 17 wallets to do things in this space. They're just going to want one. They're going to want it easy and account abstraction. Hell, probably most people don't even would like not even to care about having seed phrases and having it more of like a Web 2 feel, which we're still not there yet in this space. So that's kind of my overall thoughts. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything into that conversation.
I mean, at least from my side, like I definitely agree with that. When we look at like Web 2 and building in Web 2 and talking to users, it's like 95 to 99% don't really care about like half the stuff we're doing. And if you try to explain it to them, they just end up leaving. And so it's like working on making it as seamless as possible. I've kind of like had this phrase back when like FTX and everything and Celsius and I don't remember all the other names that like capitulated, but it was basically like I kind of like blame us for being like complacent with the UX because everyone was like, oh, like it's DeFi summer, like the UX isn't that bad, like we can live with it. But then it's like that created all these centralized like CeFi, centralized finance systems, and then everything burst, and then everyone lost trust in crypto. But it was actually like the centralized environments that like really hurt it, and it's basically because we were complacent with the UX.
Yeah, well said. Agree 100%.
Yeah, and then it's just, my background for those out there, like I've been in accounting and finance for, I don't know, it's for way too long now. But most people just don't, excuse me, I must drop my phone. Most people just don't care about finance in general. Even the ones that have the financial wherewithal to invest, they usually have someone kind of do it for them. And, we did have all these CeFi kind of intermediaries, and me personally, luckily, I don't want to say luckily, but I never was affected by any of them because it's my background. I didn't get into this space to have someone take my assets and kind of guarantee me some sort of smaller return on my investment. I mean, I got into this space because I wanted to experience it all, explore it all, and also have my own keys and my own destiny, so to speak. I didn't make all the right moves. I timed the market pretty well, but I was taking things into UST, and I didn't think. And at the time, Cosmos, that's pretty much all we had was UST. We had the euro too, but no one really used it. So we kind of got beat if you didn't cash the fiat or take your stable off to another ecosystem outside of IBC. And I don't know too many people that were kind of in the thick of things in Cosmos. So we kind of got hurt by that, but it was kind of our decision. It wasn't like, well, we had our funds on this central entity, and then they basically just took our funds. They were taking it and doing whatever they wanted with it. And I understand how those things work. And that's why I never recommended
putting money on any of those BlockFis or Celsius or anything, because I not that I didn't trust them. It just was my thesis was like, I'm not giving anyone my money to get me some sort of return. I could just stick with stocks if I was going to do that. So I was all in on DeFi, and I'm still really bullish on it. And I do like that there's more onboarding and offboarding and account abstractions that people will use. Like, they don't want to have to do. I can't tell you how many people I spoke to in the 2 years where, they might be outside of Cosmos and they're like, man, what's going on with the price of Atom? I'm like, well, what do you mean? And then they're like, I have my Atom on Coinbase, and I'm like, do you have a Kepler wallet? And they're like, no, but they said they've held Atom for like 2 years. It's surprising, but that's kind of how people are. The difference between, call it CeFi or centralized exchanges compared to DeFi is it is a lot easier, right? Like, you just create an account, maybe you KYC, and then that's it. Like, you can do everything on there without having to know, like, oh, and I need to send my assets over here. And I can't tell you how many times I spoke to people, and I've never thought this was a thing, but people don't know what a memo's for. And it's like, well, usually a memo's only when you're sending it to a centralized exchange. It's kind of like your internal account within the centralized exchange. There's been people, believe it or not, that, and if you're out there, never do this, obviously, but they put their seed phrase in the memo before. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, that's how the lack of knowledge, right? And just, there is a lot to learn, and we kind of take the things for granted because we've been doing this for so long. We kind of know better, or the fact that, like, customer service is usually like on Telegram or socials. It's like, hey, administrators will never DM you. If they do, most likely it's a scam. No one's going to tell you to put your seed phrase in anywhere. If they do, it's going to be a scam. But yet, still people fall for these random tricks and all that. It's kind of sad, but I guess we all kind of are like early test rats, I guess. But it is getting better. I think we still need to drastically improve. Cosmos getting MetaMask snaps is going to help, because there's a lot of people that just want MetaMask. They don't want to buy. They don't want to get another wallet, and I don't blame them. And not that I don't think that I think Kepler is superior to MetaMask. It's just that people are used to what they're used to, and they don't want to have to learn new things. People I just don't want to say we're lazy, but a lot of people are lazy. They don't want to do stuff like that. So, long story short, I think we're kind of heading in the right direction with the customer. I always like to call it the customer experience and things like that. And also, I forgot to preface this, because again, I'm not usually the main host, is that anything that any of us say on this space does not constitute any sort of financial advice. We're not financial advisors, just so I get that out of the way. But anyways, Marko, what is Binary? Like, what are you guys got going on over there?
Yeah, so around January is when Binary came to be. Previously, we were all at Interchain, at the ICF, and we kind of took a step back and realized we kind of wanted to create our own future in many aspects, and do things also outside of what we were normally doing. And so the Builders program and the Cosmos SDK was spun out into Binary Builders. We still work closely with the ICF and everyone there. And it's still like we are at the end of just one big family. And so Binary came to be. It runs the Cosmos, maintains the Cosmos SDK, alongside some other teams. Operates the Builders program, which is kind of like the interchain accelerator. And then also, we once we spun out, we kind of created our first venture, which is Numia. And Numia is a data analytics platform and like RPC provider for Cosmos. So it's really taking a look into the data and like seeing what's actually going on, and like helping teams do now they're helping teams do a bit more of like product market research and like user acquisition, and analyze the costs to user acquisition and how to target users. So it's kind of taking the Web 2 mentality and bringing it to Web 3.
So are you guys like ones that, maybe you just said this, I totally was zoning out, to be honest with you. It's been a long weekend, but do you guys like recommend other teams to do upgrades? Like, are you testing the SDK? Like, I'm sure you recall this, but not too long ago,
Binance didn't update, and then something happened. I don't remember, like funds were lost, or they didn't have the newest up to date code. Is that correct?
So that situation is a bit different than everyone else who kind of is, let's say, part of Cosmos or part of the interchain. Now, Binance is part of the interchain, but they forked the Cosmos SDK and that library that had the bug many years before. And in that time, I believe we tried to communicate to them, or like through some channels, like, hey, we're not using this anymore. We recommend not using it as well. And it kind of like fell to the wayside. And then we were also going through our own, let's say, restructuring at the core layers. This was back when like All in Bits team was spun out into Interchain and so on. And so the code that like they were using was not used by the Cosmos SDK, and it was just kind of like legacy code left in IVL. But even if we removed it from that library, I believe they would have been still using it just because they were using a really old copy of the software.
Okay, that makes sense. So how long have you been like in Cosmos, like personally?
So I had an interesting start in Cosmos. I've been here, like I joined 2 months after the Cosmos Hub launched. So I think that's like 4.5 years now. And I was first hired as a developer relations engineer, and quickly went and worked on Tendermint, now known as Comet BFT. Worked there and helped build the team for about 2.5 years, and then took a step back and kind of went back to DevRel. I was working on the grants program, and then there was like some turmoil going on in the Cosmos SDK. Some teams were kind of like upset, so I kind of like jumped in to help mediate, and that evolved into me ending up leading the Cosmos SDK and helping build a team and maintain the software and push it forward.
So, having said the team part, how many people are actually on or on your team? Did you understand that kind of like?
Yeah,
I kind of mumbled there, but sorry about
that. So the Cosmos SDK is like comprised of not only a single team, but many of us, and we have a lot of contributors. The binary part of the Cosmos SDK right now is, I just got to do the math quickly in my head, around 7-8 people. And these are, and us 7-8, we're in the software every day, working with users, reviewing code, writing code, and so we're there every day, trying to maintain it and trying to keep everything, all the documentation up to date and everything like that. And then we do have teams like Zondex is a close partner, and they maintain a lot of the ledger, signing, and different tooling around the Cosmos SDK, and they're going to help a lot with the upcoming cryptography work. And then we have another team called Origitech. They help on like some Go level security audits, fuzzing, profiling, benchmarking, and stuff like that. Those are kind of the people that are contracted by the ICF to. We are all contracted by the ICF to do work. But outside of that, we have a lot of contributors, not necessarily on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis. And those are of the likes of Osmosis, Barachain, Crypto.com. Now Say has really jumped in on a lot of the storage research we're doing. And really the list is kind of like ever expanding. Confio's there. Skip is there. So the team, the amount of contributors on a weekly basis is fairly high to the Cosmos SDK.
Yeah, I know. I mean, everything about Cosmos. I mean, I got into Cosmos when Osmosis launched, because like before that, I don't know if there was really too much to do, but someone told me about Osmosis, and they were like, go check it out. And I did. And I was, so used to using Uniswap, and I just became like such a fanboy. And then I started helping on Telegram. And that's really when I did the research and was like, wow, this makes sense. Because like when I first got into crypto, and when the virus happened, it was the first time I actually had some free time. In fact, I was laid off for like a couple of months or so. And
I was like, all right, well, I've always loved tech. I build computers. I've loved technology. That's pretty much all I ever really invest in for the most part. I was like, let me go check out, I understood what crypto was a little bit, but I didn't really do any research. So me as an investor, I don't invest in things unless I kind of know what it is and use it and do things. But so I went, COVID happened. I got into crypto and was messing around with all the ecosystems that, like, when you go on YouTube, that's what you're going to find. You don't really necessarily find Cosmos unless you really start to like dig in. But I was using everything, and I was like, man, this stuff just seems so clunky and fragmented. It doesn't make any sense. Like, if I want to go from one, I was always just saying like one website to another, or like one planet to another. Like, there's so many like steps and so many different things you need to do, and you need different wallets. And I was like, this is never going to work. Like, I just said it. Like, I was like, because I work on the computers with my job, and I deal with a lot of people that are older in age, and they struggle. Like, they basically don't know how to do anything on the computer, and they're the ones that have, again, when I said early in the space, they're the ones that have all the money. Like, that's who has the money on planet Earth, are people that are older. Just a fact. Like, they lived in a golden age too. Like, they could invest in anything basically. In the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, and they probably would have did pretty well, especially if they just bought real estate or anything. But anyways. So I was like, this just doesn't make sense. Like, it's so fragmented. You got to use, like, you send data from one place to another, and it takes forever. Sometimes it fails. Like, it's just like a crappy experience. And I was like, there has to be something else better. So that's when I started to kind of look into other solutions. And there was a YouTuber, and shout out to him. He's still doing his thing. His name is GDLT, and like, he just covered all of crypto. Like, he didn't care about what ecosystem was what. Just like most people, they just don't care. And he's not a maximalist or anything. He's just like, hey, his spaces I always found very interesting. And the one day, this was right around like I think of late June. And I was like, hey, like, outside the top 200, like, what chain is like catching your eyes? And he instantly said Osmosis. And I was like, what's that? And he started explaining it. He was like, go try it out. And I know this is like maybe a week and a half or so after it initially launched. I think the date Osmosis start was like June 17th. So it was probably a week and a half, 2 weeks afterwards. So we'll just say July 1st, just for whatever. I think it was still in June. But anyways, I went on there, and the APRs were just like super insane. I thought it was a scam at first, because I was like, man, there's no way these APRs could be this high. But then I understood like why. And then I started to do the research on like who started who started Osmosis, and I seen Sonny and Josh, and then I found out like who they were, and then I was like, what's Cosmos? And then I started to like look into everything, like the SDK and how you can send data from one chain to another with relayers. And I was like, it's kind of just reminded me of like a decentralized postal service, and every planet, like the humans all speak the same language or whatever. So it just all made sense to me philosophically. So that's when I really was like, all right, I'm sold on how the technology works. Now let me just really dig in. And I've just been fascinated ever since. And like, one of the questions that I always like to ask people that are actually working on the tech side of things is, explain it to someone if they're like, what is the cause, like in a simplistic way. Like, I like to use metaphors and analogies and whatnot, but to someone that's like real new to the space, and they're like, what is the Cosmos SDK? Explain it to me in a very simplistic way, and why it works, and why do you like it, so to speak.
The Cosmos SDK is a set of tools to build an application with. And that application can really be anything you'd like. So if you think of things like Ethereum and Solana, you kind of have like a single computer to rule the world, kind of like the all powerful computer. And in the Cosmos world, the thesis was, hey, like, maybe you don't want to share computation. You don't want to share a computer with your whole country or your whole neighborhood. Maybe you want your own computer. And so this is where the Cosmos SDK comes into play. So it allows you to potentially build your own computer, build your own application, and deploy it and control its life cycle and all the features that you want to build on it. The reason kind of like I like the Cosmos SDK and Cosmos in general is I would say it's more so the people behind it. Like if we look at like Ethan Buckman, Sonny, Dave, Josh, Even Jay, like, I mean, the reason I joined Cosmos was I watched the video of Jay Kwan and Ethan Buckman giving a talk in SF at like a Bitcoin meetup, and they were like showing Tendermint, and I was just like blown away by like what they were talking about, but even more so about like their vision. That I was like, I just want to work with these people. I don't care the tech. I don't care if it's blockchain or not. I just want to work with these people, and that's like stood the test of time for me. Like I get to work with most of these people even today, even 4.5 years later, and the people really like believe in what they're working on, and it's not just a job or a way to make money for them. Because I mean, if it was a way to just like make a quick buck, then like the founders like Ethan Buckman wouldn't still be here, Jay wouldn't still be building, Sonny and Dave and Josh wouldn't, like they would have launched Osmosis, but they could have like left if they wanted to just make a buck. And these people are like truly believers in what they're doing and just not just going through the motion.
Yeah, and yeah, it resonates with me too. Like on like again, I like to think of everything more philosophically and visually, and kind of like it just started to make sense to me. And when I was helping at the permissionless event, like pretty much no one there was cosmonauts. Like there was a few people that would come by and be like IBC gang or whatever. So I knew like they knew what Cosmos was, and Osmosis had a booth there. And people would come up and they would say, "What is osmosis?" And as soon as they said that, I would know instantaneously, like they knew nothing about Cosmos, because at the time, like that's what everyone was using. I mean, that's the only thing, for the most part, you can technically do at that time was use osmosis. So if someone had that particular question, I wouldn't even tell them really what osmosis was. I would say, I would just start explaining to them like what Cosmos is and why it works and why it's honestly a better solution than other chains. And I would say, hey, because like everyone had their booth over there, and I'd say like, like there's a Solana booth right there. Think of those people over there. They speak Solana. Like we'll just say they speak Russian. And then that other booth over there is Moonbeam or whatever. And I'm like, think of them speaking like Mandarin, but there's no ways they know how to communicate to one another unless there's a translator. And I was like kind of explaining it to them in that sense. And then I said, now look at Cosmos. And I had like the map of zones up or whatever I had up to kind of give them an illustration. And I'm like, look, there's all these planets. I was calling them planets. I'm like, think of them as planets. And they all could speak the same language. I said, imagine if humanity spoke the same language forever, right? Like crypto may have happened 100 years ago or 150 years ago, because there would have been no sort of language barriers ever. And then I would just start explaining to them like how you can send resources to one another and like permissionlessly, and it's acceptable. Or I was using like, sometimes I would talk to other people to mix it up and say, think of like an island, and you're stuck on an island and you can't get off the island, and people come over, and I'm just like explaining it to them that way, and they understood, and their eyes would light up. They're like, oh, that makes sense. And then afterwards, if they were still intrigued and interested, and I still had their attention, which most of the times I did, then I would try to explain to them like what osmosis is. I'm like, it's kind of like think of it as like a financial hub right now, and all the financial activity happens on us. It's a place where you can kind of barter. You can kind of come over and trade different tokens and assets, like a Uniswap. And like the difference between Uniswap and osmosis is like osmosis is its own L1, so they have their own governance, their own, they can. That's another thing I was explaining with Cosmos is like you can have your own. I was like, why rent when you can own your own land? That's kind of like the premise of Cosmos is like you don't have a landlord, because sometimes maybe you have a shitty landlord and they keep jacking the prices up, or they're just not a nice landlord, because I'm sure people have rented and had bad landlords. I'm like, this is, instead of you having a landlord, like you are the landlord, so you can build stuff on your land if you want. You can do different things, and they would get it. And that's kind of like the way I like to explain it to people, so they kind of understand it more, as opposed to like, oh, well, we have interchain security and all this other stuff. Because not that that's not important. I just don't think most people really care, unless they're kind of tech nerds. And then maybe they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like this model and that model. But I think most normal people, they just really don't care about any of that stuff. They just want to use things. And I think Cosmos is obviously
leading the forefront of being able to like go on one application to another. And that's another way I would explain it to people. I'm like, look, you know, you pull out your phone, you have all these different apps on it. That's kind of the way this is. It's like they're all applications, and you could just use it pretty easily without having to know how it's connecting to one another. So, yep, that's what I would say. And then go ahead, Frederick.
Okay, no, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. But before we got too much down the rabbit hole, I just wanted to say thank you, Marko, Binary Builders, and all the other people involved in building the Cosmos SDK, because I think it's really great on what kind of software you're building and maintaining there. And as a software developer, for me, it's always a pleasure to work with such a modular software framework where you have a nice architecture, a secure basis to basically build new stuff on top on. And Galactica as a network, having chosen the Cosmos SDK, also shows that we thought that this is the best system to realize the vision we had for the system. And so I think it's really great what impact you have on the blockchain space. So because in my opinion, Cosmos SDK is really an enabler for all the tech building on top of it, and also this communication framework with the multi-chain model and how different chains can talk to each other and build synergies. I think this is really moving the space forward.
Thank you. It's definitely, I mean, first of all, yeah, it's really good to hear that, and it's carrying that back to the team, and like definitely give them the praise so they can, so they can like appreciate it as well. It's definitely a lot of work, but I will say that like it's definitely been a journey, and the Cosmos SDK has been built up by 3 different teams over the years. And hopefully we're not switching teams anytime soon. And we have like a grand vision on where we want to go. And it's excited to share it with everyone in the next in the next week. The ICF will be putting out like a roadmap document, which it will share a lot of that information.
Oh, sounds great. I'm really curious. Yeah, going to work on next.
So,
Hey,
go ahead, Mike.
maybe I can ask like one question about the Numia as a product because I'm really interested in it. I'm just checking the website. Yeah, I wanted to ask you if Numia can maybe replace the graph in some situations for the decentralized application builders.
I think so. It can if you wanted to, but Numia's strengths are not like the graph is good because it offers like a UX for end users to get the data, while Numia is like, hey, we will index the data and expose it for anyone to use. But the insights from the data is where Numia's like bread and butter is. So the insights on where to focus development, where to focus, like where to spend assets on user acquisition, what users to target, and stuff like this, is where like Numia's really bread and butter is, on top of like providing like RPCs for people who want to use it. So it is a bit of a different like angle than Numia, but the data is there, and it's already like all the chains that are being indexed by Numia, all the data is open source. And I mean, unfortunately, you have to use a centralized provider, so GCP, Google Cloud. But once you go to Google Cloud, you can, from the documentation, you can like query any of the data, any of the raw data there.
Okay, cool. And in that case, probably maybe Numia can help developers to build some portal with analytics similar to Uniswap analytics or something like this.
Yeah, on that end, there's a product called Lenses that Numia has been working on. They have a Twitter as well, but they've been working with the grant systems in Osmosis and Cosmos, so the Atom Accelerator and the Osmosis grant system, to build dashboards for different Cosmos Hub analytics and different Osmosis analytics. And I think the future goal is to try and provide a dashboard where users can really modify and look at the data in any way they want. It's just this is only the starting point.
Marko, do you know what the before you guys get any further, because I'll pin it, or I'll like pin one of their tweets. Do you happen to know what their handle is? I'm probably following them. It's just Twitter's been acting weird for me. I can't find it right now. It's not Lens Protocol, right?
Let me quickly find it.
And while you're doing that, I'll comment to that. Like, the data is getting a lot better. I know when I first got into Cosmos, it was so frustrating trying to find data, and I'd have, a million tabs up, and I'm just like, what's the prices of this? And just all the data was so fragmented. It seems a lot better. It's starting to get more of a monolithic approach or a monolithic feel. It's like, that's one of the things that, Ethereum and Solana and whatnot has, like, they had the upper hand for a while. Is the data was a lot easier to find when you're in those ecosystems, because it's not all different all at once. But right now it's getting better. I'll admit. I think everything's improving. It's just day and night compared to what it used to be. So just everyone that's building, I appreciate it. Just keep doing your thing, because it's getting there.
Yeah, but it's funny that Ethereum is now heading in a different direction. So, as you say, on Cosmos it's getting easier with Numina to get all the data. And I feel like on Ethereum it's getting more difficult because it's splitting up in all these layer 2s.
So the Twitter is Data Lenses, LENSES. And then there you'll be able to click through to the various dashboards.
Yes, thanks, sir. Just one question from my side, the more technical one, because I'm just wondering if you do the same stuff that Infura does for Ethereum and some other networks for Cosmos as well.
Same as who? Sorry.
Infura.
Yeah. So the Numia does have a set of RPCs that can be used as well. So it's not as the UI. There isn't a UI for like to sign up for it and stuff like this. It's more like just reaching out, I believe, through their email, and then they provide you with like an API key.
That's cool.
I believe they are working with Mystic Labs for the RPCs for the Metamask snap as well.
Cool. I think we have a great point for connection here. Thanks.
I'm super excited for the snaps. I did a space with this, the Mystic Labs and one of the other founders of the MetaMask snaps. I think it's a net positive, and just in general. I always like to use the analogy metaphor of when you and I or any of us go to the stores, if we go to like a shopping center or a plaza or whatever, there's a bunch of different stores that we like to go into. It's not like every store that we go into, we need a different wallet or something to like partake and purchase things in the store, and like currently kind of like how crypto is. It's, if you are trying to experience a bunch of different chains outside of, IBC, you typically need multiple wallets, and it's kind of annoying, and it does like any sort of friction point, you lose people. And nowadays we just, not all of us, but some people just have no attention span. So if you make them go do other things, someone that's used to using MetaMask all the time, you're like, yeah, you got to go download the Phantom wallet, or you got to go download the Kepler wallet if you want to go do things in IBC. They're just not going to do it, sadly.
I mean, I'm guilty of that when I go to a new ecosystem. Like the other day, I was trying to play with SUI, SUI, and I was like, what wallet do I go download? And then I was like reading up on which wallets, and I was like, how do I know I trust this wallet? And these are the same questions that like everyone in crypto asks, not only like the new people. It's like, it's like, okay, Kepler's here. And now Kepler's more known, so it's like the name is more known and stuff. But in the early days, it was like, why would I trust Kepler over MetaMask that's been around for longer? So it's like the same question over and over.
That's for sure. And you know how crazy it is actually, this MetaMask snaps, because they are actually extensions inside of the extension of a browser. So what do you do for keeping the UX good?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I think the version 1 of Snaps won't be like amazing UX, and I think that's like a thing that's not really being talked about. But it's going to get MetaMask people in, but the UX still won't be 100%.
Yeah, I played a lot around it with MetaMask snaps, just because for Galactica we're also building a snap so that you can hold your zero-knowledge certificates in self-custody in the wallet, and then use it also to generate zero-knowledge proofs. So there we are developing the snap to integrate it into the wallet users already have for EVM-compatible blockchains. And the user interface is kind of minimal, so you can create different confirmation windows where you basically add text inputs field, and then you have a confirm or reject button. And another dimension what you can work on in Snaps is annotate transactions. So this is also probably really interesting, where the user signs a transaction, and then the extension, or the snap from MetaMask, can basically add data on what this transaction is doing, if the smart contract it's interacting with are secure, and so on. So I'm really excited for the launch in the stable version of MetaMask, and what snaps will be available in the beginning.
Yeah, Marko. So I know you said the 3 teams. Can you talk more about like how someone goes? Like, say I'm a team, or like I'm just a small guy, and I'm like, you know what, I really want to build into Cosmos. What's a way for people to reach out to like your program or just in ICF? Like, what's the best ways of going about someone trying to come into Cosmos?
So I think that it's like it's a bit of an overloaded term. So I guess it's like, let's break it down. So it's like going into the Cosmos, let's say building a chain, like Galactica or Osmosis or something like that. Then going to the Builders program. I want to say the website is Builders program, but I can't. Where are you? Yeah, so on Twitter, it's at Builders Program. And so if you're building a chain, building not even a chain, a roll-up, or using just any part of the interchain stack. So if you're only using Comet BFT, if you're only using the Cosmos SDK, if you're only using IBC, if you're only using Cosmosm, like any part of that stack, the Builders Program is here to like assist. And that's not only on the technical side, but that's legal, marketing, raising money, pitch deck feedback, and the list really goes on. And then to be like a contributor on a daily basis, so attending like the team stand-up and stuff like this, that would go directly to the ICF. There isn't like a grants program open right now. It's been on pause for a year or so, but going through like either Atom Accelerator or emailing the ICF directly and asking for the process. I'm not sure of the process myself. I just, the way we went about it was we were part of the ICF, and then we decided to spin out, but still maintain the Cosmos SDK. So we were kind of like grandfathered into that. But we're always looking for more contributors and like onboarding new developers to understand the stack, but also just like better the stack. Because a fresh mind really brings in better insights than someone who's been here for too long.
And then, like for Galactica, like, did you guys go about this at all, or like when you guys first got started, like what did you guys do to get going?
We did a lot of documentation. So I think this is really good with Cosmos SDK and also what you can find on Numina pages. So I personally didn't have a lot of contact with Numina directly, but I'm sorry, but I think it's a really good starting point to get information. Probably the guys working on our node know more about it.
And then I guess like a good topic we can kind of shift a little bit is like earlier I was saying about the like having bad landlords, and you can kind of control your own destiny, having your own chain. You can have, as many, as little or as many validator sets as you want to have. And I guess like if you guys, Marko would be a good question is what's kind of separates, in your opinion, being a validator within the Cosmos chain compared to like maybe being a validator outside of I like to just say IBC because people get confused when I just say Cosmos. They think it's just Atom. No offense. I think that's kind of the misconception in this space. I like to just say IBC because people understand it, I think, a little bit better. But what is your thought process about what the difference is between running a validator and IBC compared to outside of IBC?
I do operate validators, and I've been doing it in the ETH space, in the Polkadot space, and in other spaces. I will say that on Solana and Near a bit, I will say that the operating a node and the amount of updating is quite seamless. Like say in Substrate, you kind of have to touch your node once in a blue moon or less. And they do like automatic upgrades, so that is quite nice. But I would say the onboarding is a bit complex because there's like so many different keys you have to use. So I would say that the motto of Cosmos and a lot of the designs it has adopted, and what we all kind of like joke about is like we like just keep it simple, stupid, and it's like everyone around us is building complex systems, and we're building complex systems as well. But when it comes down to the user, like the node operator, and ideally the application developer, we should just keep it simple, stupid. Just because the more complex we make it, it's just going to be more unusable, take more time to onboard, and so it's definitely interesting playing around in different ecosystems, and then coming back to what is Comet BFT, the Cosmos SDK, and just being like, okay, like this just like kind of like works. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know who was the person that created the. It was only essentially one line of command to run like an Osmosis node /validator. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I forgot the name of the tool, but it's like a single command line, and then it like sets everything up for you, keys and whatnot. So yeah, stuff like that makes it just even more seamless.
Oh, it's so simple because I mean I know basic coding, but I don't have the time to sit here and learn like Python and learn just all the commands for everything. And someone shared that with me, and I was just I like to mess around, and it was so easy. I literally just copied and pasted one line of command, and it set my node up. I just had to like hit one or two to answer a couple questions, and then it was just boom, I was in. It was like this is super easy, and I remember watching like how to set up a validator before that, and even just in Cosmos, I was like, man, that's a lot of lines that can't come. You need to know CLI for sure, and it was more intimidating, and that's why I think even that aspect of running it, if people want to run a validator, I think it's a lot easier. And one of the things that I really like about Cosmos compared to the hype is like L2s and Ethereum, and I like to look at L2s as pretty much very centralized. Not to say that you can't get a little bit of centralization in Cosmos, because it does seem like a lot of the same validators are running a lot of the different app chains, but having a multi-sig, I don't think people realize that. Like having a multi-sig outside of like an L2 is kind of very centralized. So I don't know if you want to touch on that compared to like running your own validator on, because you said you have like a lot of experience with that.
The interesting thing about like L2s and the rollup space, so I'm like diving into it, work closely with the team over at Celestia and Rollkit, and so the interesting thing there is like I would say a lot of these applications, even in Cosmos, like even in the interchain, like you don't decentralization doesn't matter too much. And when you kind of like reposition your mentality of like, okay, the complexity of operating the rollup, I'm going to reduce that complexity while maintaining the high amount of security that I potentially get from settling on Ethereum. And in this case, it's like, okay, the operation of the rollup or the L2 doesn't need to be decentralized. And okay, like I think things like potentially like optimism, Arbitrum base, and stuff like this, those would probably need to be decentralized, and I think will be decentralized in the near future. But other things like there's a bunch of chains in Cosmos that like could reposition themselves as an L2 because they're not really doing anything like as a security. They're not doing anything like DeFi related. So it's kind of like, do they actually need decentralization? But yeah, it does kind of go into the aspect like in the rollup space, there's like a few different variations in the centralized sequencers, decentralized sequencers, and shared sequencers. And then in that vein, it really just matters on like which direction you go. And if you kind of have this trade-off of like, okay, there may be a case for censorship. You might be a bit less censorship resistance, but on the other side, it's like you may not need a token, or you may not need to inflate your token, like many Cosmos chains are doing today, just because they have a validator set. So it's like there are trade-offs to like every decision here, and I think they're valid ones to make, and I think it's a good onboarding. So I think DYDX is kind of like the perfect example of a chain that, or a upcoming chain that really went through the process of, they were a smart contract, they couldn't scale there, they became an L2, and then they ran into issues there and needed to decentralize because of the product they built, and then they became an app chain. Like that user journey is super valuable because that is like the optimal user journey. They went through all the different paths.
Yeah, and then like to touch on that, I think one of the issues when someone, when they like some random community member or just someone in general, they ask me how I feel about Cosmos, I try to keep it like 100 with them and let them know why I like it and the things that I don't like about it. And one of the things that I don't like about it, like decentralization, like you said, can be obviously good in a sense, but also bad in a sense. Like you kind of still need to run a business in a sense, and hoping for just everything to be decentralized, in my opinion, is kind of not the right approach, because it's just there's just so much friction and fragmentation and like less business development, but also you get this kind of like thing right now that's been going on, and I just see it like you were saying about the token. Like, why does everyone need a token? And I agree with that, but also like how much block space do we need, right? Like there's so much block space, and I don't know the numbers. I don't think anyone knows the numbers. Like right now during the kind of this bear market right now, like how many active users really are there truly? Not how many wallets, because everyone that has multiple wallets, including myself. So how many users really are there? How much block space do we clearly completely need? Like in my opinion, there's too much block space. And yeah, one of the problems that Cosmos has is it's not the technology, it's more about, like the tokenomic structure, and me being an accountant, and like I understand when you first launch like a token, it's more about like, okay, we're going to reward the earlier investors with essentially more equity in the company. But after a couple of years, it's like, I just look at it like, okay, well, why do we still need like really high APRs? It should be like, I just look around. If I see anything over 10%, I'm just like bearish right away. Unless it's like brand new, then I'm like, okay, I understand. But if it's like 2-3 years down the road already since it, initially launched, and even that still obviously is super early. Like everything, in my opinion, in crypto is a startup, even including Ethereum. Although it's kind of not a startup anymore because it's really established. Although people have their pros and cons with Solidity and all that. But anyways, like everything really in Cosmos is a startup. So I get the higher equity because it's almost like I get that, but
I also sometimes I think like, why does this chain need a token, or why do we need 7,000 dexes? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know sometimes like what the direction is all the time. It gets more difficult, and not to be bearish, I love the tech, but I just don't know. Like you were saying about L2s, like I do feel like that sometimes. Like some things could just be better suited on just being built on top of, which is great about Cosmos is it can scale vertically, horizontally. Like it is modular. Like there's a lot of like you could just plug and chug, so to speak. You're not just stuck. Even if you are an L1, you can kind of like morph into an L2 if you wanted to, in a sense. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. That's just my personal thoughts. I don't know if you wanted to add any more to that, because obviously you're really touched. You're in the game, so to speak. So any of you guys can comment on that.
I just wanted to add one thing to something you mentioned about not being sure how many real people there are on the blockchain compared to how many wallets there are and so on. I think this is something I'm excited about in Galactica, that we finally have something with the zero knowledge KYCs, where we can actually identify and separate unique individuals with a KYC. So I think this would be really interesting to use this kind of technology and then also get some metrics out of it, like how many unique persons have registered in this process.
Yeah, I like that. And I know when I first, I'll full disclosure, when the Luna and UST crash happened, that really opened up my eyes to, looking beyond just DeFi. That's my background is in finance and accounting, and all is well with that. But it's more so what after that, I kind of shifted my mindset more so on just pure technologies and things that could be useful, whether that's through gaming or music or art or identities or artificial intelligence, whatever it may be. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole and shifted my mindset. And then when I found you guys, I was really fascinated about having like a decentralized society and having KYC where not all your information is prudent. Like you don't need to know, okay, they graduated this university at this year. It could just be more so like this certificate verifies that this individual graduated from Harvard, and or they have a CS degree, or like you were saying about the KYC, because I know what the biggest player in this space in the future is, people are starting to wake up about it, and there are chains out there that are working on stuff, and there's one in Cosmos called Provenance, but is real world assets, because there's like $500 trillion of real world assets like globally, and a lot of times these people that own a lot of these assets, it's like pulling an arm and a leg to get leverage against it, or a loan against it, or it could take weeks, sometimes up to a month or 45 days, and having it all leverage in blockchain can allow essentially instantaneous settlement on maybe taking out a 20% loan on this whatever sort of asset that they have, and like that'll all get in here. But having said that, it will need to be KYC, like, so there needs to be solutions for KYC. And one of the things that, when I got into this space initially, kind of just going around in the circle here, but one of the things that resonated with me initially when I got into the space, especially in Cosmos, was like secret network having privacy by default, where you can still kind of verify your transactions on chain, but not everyone in the world can see it unless you want to show them, and because like there's no advantageous advantage for like a portfolio manager to use blockchain right now, because everything's out there, right? And that would make no sense, because if I'm their competitor, I could just be like, oh, Warren Buffett did this, and this right away, and then just copy it exactly what he did, his investments, and then there's no advantage for him, and then it's just not realistic to have that. So being able to have something where there's some sort of layer in between, some sort of privacy by default, but then at the end of the quarter, you could still show your shareholders like, hey, you know, we invested in this, and this, we're up 17% for the quarter or whatever, but and still pay taxes and do whatever you need to do if you sell. But like, not everyone and their mother can just see every transaction you do, because it just doesn't make any sense. I think about blockchain right now, and I always visualize a blockchain as a decentralized accounting ledger that you build. Then you could take that, because it's just equations and it all adds up, you know, ones and zeros, and it's just like an accounting ledger. But then you could take that, like, that layer and then build things on top of it. But you also need to have some sort of way to have privacy in there. So when you guys, like, when I found out what you guys were doing, and I did a lot of research on decentralized societies and KYCs and you know, ZK rollups and certificates, and like it started to like pique my interest, and I'm really fascinated to see like that kind of evolution, because there needs to be some sort of solution to verifying, or like having applications where like only people can interact with it if this wallet is KYC'd, and like, you know, like that's more kind of, in my opinion, more realistic, because we'd be all remiss to think that like world governments and people that actually have all the financial wherewithal are just going to be like, oh, I'm going to do 100% of everything on DeFi. And I think Marko hit home earlier. I do think that, you know, just in general, if you think about most of the people on planet Earth, they probably don't even care about like decentralization, you know, like, I mean, hell, people are kind of, especially younger people, they're just kind of born from day one to just put everything and anything on the computer, whether it's discriminating against them or, you know, illicit activity or whatever, stuff that they're probably not going to get work one day, because they're like, hey, you're an idiot, you posted all this stupid shit on the computer, we're not going to hire you. But there needs to be some sort of layer in crypto where you kind of like are in between, right? It's like you're kind of you're still not going one way or the other, but you're adding solutions to both sides of the pie, so to speak. So I don't know if anyone wanted to comment or add to that, or tell me I'm an idiot or whatever, you can feel free. But
unmuting at the same time. No, it's definitely interesting to hear and also see where things are going. It's going to get. I think it's going to get better, and especially like, yeah, Provenance. Like there are teams who it's always interesting working with teams who are so subtle and like not in the hype cycle of like normal blockchain, because then they are actually trying to build a business with like proper revenue instead of just like hoping for the hype cycle.
Hey guys.
Oh, yeah.
Mike, did you have something to add there? Can you hear Marko?
I might no. Maybe we have some connection issue. I don't know. I didn't hear.
Okay, well, yeah, just let him do his thing, and then I can maybe just translate it over to you. But he was going, Marko, if you wanted to keep talking, but you were talking about Provenance and like their business model.
Yeah, and it just like it's them, and then there's other teams using the Cosmos SDK who have many times like tens of thousands of monthly active users, some daily active users, and it's just so interesting to see that they're not they're not stuck in this like hype cycle that they need to like drive the token price up, because it's like they're using the token for something else. That, and then like, yeah, like what you're talking about on block space, it's like every time a new chain launches, it's just kind of like, okay, we have more block space. And talking with like the Comet team and talking with different like teams and researchers in the Cosmos ecosystem and in the broader ecosystem, we've discussed of how to optimize this block space, because right now we do have an we don't have any saturation of block space, because we don't have the amount of users needed to fill all this block space, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we should figure out a way to optimize it. So maybe it's like we have a way to like merge chains, but they still have sovereignty or something like that we can really optimize the whole landscape, instead of just like we all just launch new chains in order to launch a token.
Yeah, and then it's almost reminding me. I feel like I'm an old man now, but it's almost reminding me in a way of like the .com bubble, there was just so many .coms, and like some of those got acquired over time. It's not like they were all bad, right? Like some of them did really well, and then and people still do that now. Amazon buys different, different companies. Maybe you and I and a few other people start up some sort of IT business, and then we just get acquired, and now we're under kind of Amazon's umbrella. And I think that could be kind of the way that, especially in Cosmos, kind of happens too. But yeah, there needs to be some sort of way to still have their sovereignty. So if we can figure out a way to do that, because I do feel like it's just like such wasted block space. And then it's really sad, like to think about the validator side, because I've had numerous conversations with several validators, and it's kind of it's really I don't know, it's sometimes it's like really stressful, right? Like they're just sitting here, like they're at the bottom of the food chain of whatever chain they're on. They're not making profit right now, especially right now. So they're just all kind of expenses, and then they're like fighting to stay on the active list, and it's just like a lot of like stress, right? And I just think sometimes a lot of it can be a little bit consolidated in a sense. And so that's kind of like my thoughts, not to be doom and gloom, because like you said, I don't know necessarily if that's a bad thing, because if people do build the right applications and kind of, one of the things that I advise some projects and some applications that are building, whether that's in Cosmos or not, is if you're using blockchain and you're an application for whatever, like if it's a dating app or if it's a gaming app or whatever, I don't know if you necessarily have to prioritize educating people on what blockchain is. Like just use the technology and have account abstraction of like what, just use it. And if people want to go down the rabbit hole, maybe you have it like very small in the corner of your paper, your docs or something. But like I see some applications that are just doing like my thing is like building applications that normal people would just use, not just like us tech nerds, but just like normal stuff that people use, like games or whatever it is, dating apps or whatever. But maybe you find a way to use blockchain and add value to like whatever chain that you decide to build on or whatever you're doing. But you don't need to prioritize and educating people like, oh, well, this is what you need to do in the blockchain world, and this is what a blockchain is, and this is what crypto is. Because I honestly don't think most people care about it, nor will they ever care about it. Just like when you go on a website and then you want to go to another website, like you don't give a shit that it's pinging off the server over here, then it went to that server, and then it took like this many milliseconds to do that. Like no one cares about that. So like I think we're kind of in a way in this space, like I always look at it that we're we're kind of going backwards a little bit. I understand why we're doing what we're doing, and there's a lot of like potholes in the road that we have to fix and do all this, and everything's very early still. And I'm super long on blockchain technology. Like I feel like it's going to be here forever, and it's going to be, a vital part in every sort of realm of how pre-existing technologies are, and obviously it's going to start with the financial infrastructure, because the financial realm of things is clearly broken. It's been broken for decades upon decades, so we can mitigate that and fix that and then fix other things at the same time. But that's kind of like my rant on blockchain. And I think a lot of times we do keep just making more block space, and then people that are building cool things that like just a normal random person that works 9 to 5 will come home and maybe play for an hour or do for an hour. They're kind of prioritizing blockchain and trying to educate people blockchain. I think it should just be like you just use blockchain, and then the other person truly doesn't even have to know what it is really. It's just that they like the application and it's legitimate.
Exactly. It's like we are, in a way, hyping up like a backend technology, like something like Node.js or Express or Diesel and Rust and stuff like that. It's like it's because we could like build a token from it. That's why it's like we're getting all this hype, which is like a double-edged sword, because the pro is that we've had the amount of money put into protocol development, and cryptography has never been this high. And so we've really been able to progress a lot there. But on the downside is the speculation part. And so figuring out or like just pushing blockchain down to the bottom parts where it's like no one really cares about it, but the UX is good enough that everyone can build around it. So yeah, we're definitely on the right path, and especially in Cosmos with the Cosmos SDK, hearing about more and more users that when you use their app, you don't even know they're using. You don't even know that they're using the Cosmos SDK. I mean, that is the end goal.
Yeah, and then I kind of wanted to shift. I know, like, I appreciate everything that you're saying, and your expertise and the time that you spent working within Cosmos and all the relationships that you have obviously made and continuously make. I guess the last question I have for you: are you going to Cosmoverse?
Yep. Speaking at it as well.
No, I didn't even look at the lineup. I'll be there though. It's going to be my first Cosmoverse. I'm excited. I was supposed to go last year, and then something happened. But yeah, this will be my first year going to Cosmoverse, so I'm looking forward to it. Vibing out with all the cosmonauts in Turkey, and it's going to be a good time. But yeah, I'll have to check you out whenever you're speaking, because you're doing a really good job. I think there's certain people in the space that do a really good job of relaying the information in a simplistic way where people can understand it. A lot of times my role in this space is kind of just translating it into regurgitating into ways that just normal people can understand, as opposed to devs that sometimes they just don't really know how to speak it or slow it down into a way that people can understand it.
Exactly. And so it's definitely gonna be interesting. Cosmoverse, the first one was a lot of fun, and then Cosmoverse Medellin in Colombia was an amazing location, and I think Istanbul is also going to be an amazing location where we have a lot of fun. So definitely looking forward to meet you and anyone in this Twitter space who's going to be there in person.
What I like about the third one is compared to the other two, not that I've been there, but just the lineup, and then it's other ecosystems outside of it are kind of getting involved as well, which is obviously what we need. Sometimes I feel like these conferences, it's almost like the same people just saying the same things over and over. I could be wrong, but I went to ETH Denver, I went to Interop Summit, and I've been to quite a few different. There's usually one theme or one topic. Like when I was in ETH Denver in February, it was all about ZK rollups and ZKs, and it was like the same thing over and over the whole entire conference. And so we'll see how this goes, but it's going to be interesting because I think there's like Binance and AVAX, and don't know everyone else, but it seems pretty cool that there's other ecosystems getting involved and sponsoring and whatnot. So that's cool, and looking forward to it. I don't want to hold everyone up. I mean, I can keep talking forever. I really enjoy crypto, Cosmos in particular. And then I do want to give, because Galactica, we really haven't even spoke too much about what we have here at Galactica. So I guess I would like to know more of a status update. Like, how's everything going on the development side? Are you guys running into any hiccups, and how's everything going over there?
Well, we are getting ready for the testnet right now. We are working hard on the node to develop enough Cosmos modules for that. The first module will go with the reputation part that is, I think, described in our white paper good enough. So it's quite a lot of work because we need to aggregate a lot of data to get the reputation of an account, to get all of the interactions processed and taken care of, let's say. The other parts are the Galactica Snap, which is getting ready for an audit that probably will start next week or something like this. For other Cosmos modules, we are working on the indexers for generating the Merkle proofs fast, so the UX is not bad, I would say, because some proofs require a few minutes for being generated, and that's not cool for the user. So we are working on supporting that functionality on the node side. On the other hand, we have a lot of, I would say, in technical terms, DevOps activity, because to maintain the network, at least at the first stages, when you don't have a lot of validators from the outside, and most of the nodes are holding inside of your team, and especially if we're talking about the DevNet. So we are getting ready for maintaining all the validators that we will have to making the network stable enough, to making it fast and reliable. And yeah, Frederick, maybe you want to add something else, because I not used to speaking publicly, actually.
No, you did a good job, Mike. I appreciate it. I don't know if Frederick can hear, because you said you were having you couldn't hear Marko earlier, so maybe Frederick's. I don't know if he can hear us or not, but looks like you got a request.
Yeah, so we already have a DevNet with the ZK KYC feature on it, so where anybody can check it out, anybody can get in and get the ZK KYC. And you don't need to fill in any like your personal data. You can just put any name and any birthday. We have a mock KYC provider there, and you can get a KYC. You can get your first SBT. That is basically a ZK proof confirming that you're holding a valid ZK KYC that is not expired or something. And with that stuff, I think that stuff is mostly interesting for developers who want to go on with their applications on Galactica Network, so they can just start integrating the most used protocols that we have on Ethereum, for example, with this KYC feature to allow only KYC users to have access to, something like that. But yeah, we are going from that stage to the next stage where we will have a actually testnet.
Nice. So yeah, Frederick just messaged me. I guess he's having connection issues or whatnot. But if you can't hear me, Frederick, maybe just back out, and then I can send you an invite to be speaker, so then we can finish up here on the strong side. But just wanted to, again, anyone that listens to the recording, I'm always grateful and honored for you to take your time out of your day and listen to me ramble, and I really enjoy it. I appreciate everyone. I always appreciate everyone, Sometimes in the bear market can get a little lonely. So I'm always like very appreciative, and also be proud of like you putting in the work, because it's really, like I said earlier, it's kind of human nature to kind of tap out. But if you believe, and you believe before, the market kind of went down, then, you're doing the work. And this is when builders are building. I mean, I've talked to so many different teams, and one of my things that I'm super blessed with Cosmos is I probably had conversations with nearly every single team, whether it's behind the scenes or on spaces or a combination of both. And, people are just undeterred, and I've been investing in technology for a long time. And again, not financial advice, but, like Microsoft retraced 65% in a year, Google, Amazon, every technology always does, because people just don't understand technology. There's only a small subset of humans that understand how technology works, and whether that's from Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 now, or whatever. So like certain people, they just understand it, and most people just don't understand it. And it's how you get the most people into the space is by, just keep building and making it more simplistic and easier for people to get into the space. And then it's just like a trickle down effect. It's like the butterfly effect. And I think we're there. It's going to happen. There's going to be a mass wave of people, whether that's through gaming, music, decentralization of finances. There's all kind of things. And crypto's already empowered millions and millions of people throughout the world, where finally, for the first time, maybe they can identify themselves. They can save money because their currency, wherever they're located at, is terrible. Maybe they never had a bank account, because most people on planet Earth, believe it or not, are bankless. So, crypto mitigates that and helps empower people, and it means a lot to me. I've talked to people throughout the world, and crypto opened up my eyes, because I am an American, and it opened up to my eyes more so of like how it's easier a lot of times in America when it comes to like getting a loan or getting finances or whatever have you, and we take it for granted a lot of times. And it's super cool to see all these different things out there now that can get people access to finances and things like that. So, I'm just here and I'm excited, and I think that it's empowering and it means a lot. Like, I think crypto, in my opinion, is speed running like thousands of years of inequality for humans. And is it a perfect solution? No, but at least it's a starting point. And all the things that like older people complain about with finances and blah, 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 and voting and all this other stuff, like crypto already is here. It's already a solution that is 1,000 times better than what is presented in the old world, so to speak. And I'm excited to see the future of all this. And the one thing I've learned in my short time on planet Earth is I've learned that technology never goes backwards; it only goes forward. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see the development and the trajectory of Web3, if you call it, from here to say a year from now, 5 years from now. And I really firmly believe that Cosmos, if crypto is going to go to where we think it's going to go, the heights that it can reach, that it'll be an intricate layer of the future, if you want to call it the future internet or future web or whatever. It's Cosmos is, in my opinion, is going to be a layer. It's not going to just go away. Now, does every chain make it? I don't know. Like Marko made good points. Maybe some stuff gets consolidated or whatever. But one of the things that I like about Cosmos, from an investment standpoint, is that you can invest in all these different things, and if one doesn't make it, like, it's the IBC gang, they usually have your back. So let me see if Marko or Frederick, are you back? Frederick, can you hear me? I think he's not.
He probably hears you, but cannot speak for some reason.
We got Jack. What's up, Jack?
I just wanted to say shout out, and that Binary Builder's the best team doing it. Good to see Marko out here.
Hey, Jack.
Bad Kids Unite. Yeah, man. I don't know, Frederick, are you like alive or what, man? I think he's rugged. I think he's totally rugged. But yeah, I mean, if you guys like, we're going to close shop anyways. It's been an hour and 28 minutes. Not that I don't mind. I love it. So if you guys had any closing statements, Marko, I appreciate your time, man. I'm looking forward to possibly meeting you out in Cosmoverse. Jack, what's up, man? I'm glad you stopped up. And so Marko, if you wanted to say your closing thoughts, drop the mic on us.
Just mainly thanks for having me. It was definitely a fun chat, and definitely we'll come back to listen to other Twitter Spaces maybe next time when Jack's on there talking, or if he has been already. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing everyone in Cosmoverse. And if you're building on the Cosmos SDK or any part of the interchain stack, then definitely reach out to the Builders Program.
I'll see you guys there too.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone that tuned in, listens to the recording, as always. Sorry for we had some technical difficulties, obviously, but Frederick, I know you can probably hear me. Thank you, as always. Thank you, everyone, and take care, man. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.